if you haven't worked with me before, I've been doing this with Talent Stacker, which has been awesome for the last year or so. And I guess before that, Brad, Anita, the whole group over at Talent Stacker have really enjoyed getting to know them over the years and working with them in different capacities. So really friendly with them and everything that they do. They have a great program. I probably know a lot of you guys that are going to be watching this or in there right now, which is great to see as well. And basically the point of this, as we're going to go through this year, is there's this program, as you guys know, that you signed up for, to understand a little bit more what some other options are for you in the Salesforce world. So there's obviously great paths you can continue to do with like a W-2 job and different companies you can work with. But then there's a lot of people out there like myself that were interested in maybe doing your own thing, freelancing, maybe potentially creating some kind of like agency in the future. And so that's what this program is about itself. So I lead this with the Talent Stacker group. And basically we just take 4 topics throughout the year. We meet up once a quarter and we go through those items. And I just try to actually split this up to maybe being 30, 40 minutes or so of me talking and trying to go through something that would be valuable for you guys. And then we leave the 30, 20 minutes at the end for open Q&A. Ideally, we'd like to talk about anything that was brought up that you guys want us to dive into more of, but it is open Q&A. So if there's any other questions you guys want to touch on towards the end, start thinking of those now. This always turns into that. And I've been in these group settings on both sides of the screen. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you don't ask, like we have nothing else to talk about. So try to start thinking about anything that might be relevant to freelancing that we're going to get to at the end here. And of course, if you have questions along the way, we can definitely dive into those things a little bit more. So that's kind of the purpose of the call today. End goal is for you guys to understand our topic is going to be finding your niche when you start freelancing, as well as touching on the importance of lead magnets and what those are, how do you create them, how they play a role when you are finding your niche. So that's what we're going to be speaking about today. That's all the stuff about kind of the formalities. Again, my name over here is Jordan. I have worked with the Talent Stacker group, like I mentioned. I've been doing consulting on my own now for, it's going on my 3rd year. I did some stuff on the side before that. This is full-time. I'm running an agency at this point. I did some freelancing before that when I had a W-2 job with some clients on the side. So it's maybe been around anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And during that course of period of time, I went from just doing this all alone by myself to now having 15 different people that work for our organization. I actually don't do a whole lot of Salesforce anymore. I'm actually just focused more on the business side of things and trying to run it and find people like you guys that are great to fit into that space. So that's a little bit of why I would be qualified to talk about this with you guys, and basically just trying to share my experience of what I ran into when I was first getting started. So without any other delays here, let me get my screen pulled up for you guys and we can kick this off. Okay, I have a little presentation for us like I usually do. So we'll go ahead and head through this. The main topic, like I mentioned, was finding your niche. And this really is a Salesforce superpower. The reason why I believe that is when you first start, at least for me, I had an idea in my mind that I just take anybody that uses any kind of Salesforce and any kind of product, and I'm determined enough to basically Google the way I need to figure out how to do it. And I don't think that's a bad approach if you don't know what you want to do yet, or you don't know how to lean into something. But as you continue along, there is such a strength in picking a lane and staying in that lane. And that actually is going to resonate more with you when you think of it in the reverse terms. So something I would encourage you to think about when you're choosing to do this is when you are the buyer, you're not the client, but when you're the buyer of any product out there ever. When you think of it that way and you start thinking about the things you buy and the things you pay attention to, that makes it a little bit easier for this to click. It wasn't until I took that approach that I started to understand for myself, okay, actually that does matter because there's only certain types of food brands that I'm going to buy. There's only certain types of stores I'm going to go to. There's only certain types of clothing brands that I like. And when you think of it that way, it's like, well, why is that? And it's usually because they resonate with you in a certain way, right? So easy example, you take Nike. If you're into athletics at all, right? Running or basketball, I mean, they're everywhere, right? But athletic is kind of their thing. So if you're into athletic, high fashion, and it's more of a premium feeling brand, that's something you're probably gravitating towards. And you would probably try to pick Nike over something like a Reebok, right? Or something like a Puma. Like, it has a different feel to it for a reason. They all compete in the athletic space, but you are more gravitating towards Nike for that reason. So it's similar in this instance when you're building your freelancing career, that you want to find that niche. So this is kind of really my story of how I basically went from not knowing how to get a client at all to then finding a referral, all due to a lead magnet and building out my brand. Okay. So creating your Salesforce lead magnet, how do we actually do this? So the first step that you want to do is set up your niche that we just mentioned. Kind of explain the reasons as to why that's important and how that probably resonates with all of you. The main thing, if you remember nothing else, is this line right here. Generalists will struggle, specialists will thrive. And really the point of that, meaning if you don't have something that you're amazing at and you're more of a jack of all trades, when someone is trying to decide between you and somebody else, that's really what it ultimately comes down to. They're going to have a specific pain point and they're going to have a specific journey they're going through. And if they don't feel like you can help them with that, they're going to pick the other guy, right? So I know, again, kind of a personal example, but when we hired out some of the marketing agencies that we now work with, it's the same kind of decision, right? I have the size of my business, my specific things that I'm not good at, the problems I want to solve. And as we went through those interviews, there was a lot that just said, yeah, we just, we do marketing. We've been doing marketing for 15 years. And it all sounded great. But it wasn't until we found one where it was like, no, like, we know where you're at. You're at this level of the business. This is what you got to focus on next. This is where it's really hard and why you're struggling with it. This is how we're going to fill that gap for you. And it was very specific to that niche, to where I felt like this is the person I should choose because they know exactly where I'm at in my stage of the business and they can help me fulfill that. So it's similar here. What you should be focusing on, and these are some examples, right, are nonprofits, SMB sales teams, enterprise, custom development work, mid-market tech companies, right? There's so many different options in the Salesforce space of who you can focus on. The main point is you pick one of them. You pick one that you're interested in and hopefully good at, and go down that route. Easy way to do that, right, is to look at your current experience and then decide what is it that I enjoy and I excel at. The next point you're going to want to go to is identifying your client's pain points. Okay, so you picked the niche. Well, now in that niche, they're going to have a specific set of problems. Like I said, for me, mine at the very beginning of my business, for that marketing example, I didn't know how to reach out to leads or nurture leads. Okay. So I'm looking for somebody to basically speak to that pain point when I hire them. It's going to be the same for you when you work with one of these clients. So when you pick, let's say mine, which is mid-market tech companies, I know that a big pain point they all have, because I see it every single time, is that they have high level individuals like their CTOs, their VPs. Those people are doing low level admin work or stuff that can be automated by Salesforce. So I know they're spending a lot of money to do things that I can automate for them. And so that's always a problem when it comes to, well, you're spending your money inefficiently, you're wasting a bunch of time and talent, and you can't really scale your business because you don't have good data or the people involved to be making those decisions. So by me coming in and solving that for you, you can actually do those three things: save time, make more money, scale your business quicker. So you're going to want to look for something that's applicable, right? If it's nonprofit, I'm not super familiar with that one, but there's going to be a certain set of problems involved with those guys that you're going to want to think through. Lastly is trying to just get it up and running. There's so much time that is actually wasted by us just dinking around with things that don't matter, to be honest, and designing logos and coming up with a name and trying to determine who you should actually talk to. When in reality, if you just talk to people and you just get going, it's easier to figure those things out along the way. And you'll also realize what matters and what doesn't matter. So don't overthink it. Here's some tools you can use to do this stuff. Canva, Google Docs, Loom videos, all of that is either free or really cheap. And kind of the point here is you're just trying to make something that's going to be shareable as you build these things out. So moving to our next one, right? Here's those examples for my own business so that you can see those three things we just talked about: your niche, your pain points, and then how I'm going to go about building it. So mid-market tech companies making 10 to 50 million in ARR with at least 50 employees. It usually gets a little more focused than that. And I usually try to look for people that have some kind of funding. So you can see this isn't me just saying, oh, I work with tech, or, oh, I work with a nonprofit, or I work with people in Utah. It's something very specific that I can scale out, something I can figure out and actually look those kind of businesses up to meet that criteria, because that criteria I've spent a lot of time researching and I understand how I can help them the most. The next part down is going to be some of those pain points. So for these guys, I mentioned a few: broken sales process, repetitive manual tasks, spending money on employees inefficiently, and then again, can't make decisions to scale the company due to that bad data that they have. Okay. And then really, whatever tool I use, the main point here is just to make something shareable or sendable. It doesn't have to look great when you're first starting. It just has to be something you can deliver. The next piece is understanding your lead magnet itself. What is a lead magnet? How does it work? Where do we send it? What's it attached to? All those questions might be coming to your mind. So what it is on a very basic level, a lead magnet is a free, valuable resource that's offered in exchange for contact info. That's it. So basically the point of this is you now know some kind of pain point. You're just offering a service, something that you could do that's fairly, in most cases, you want it to kind of be quick, something that you don't mind putting some time into, and then delivering that to them. So an example for me might be, I know that, there's these 10 flows I could build right off the bat, and I've done it over and over and over again for these mid-market companies. A good lead magnet for me that I could use would be something like, I record a Loom video, I show you what those all look like and why they're going to save you time and money and make your business better. And then I hide it in a way. And I say, if you want access to this, you give me your email address and your name and your phone number, right? Whatever you want to collect from them. In exchange, I'll give you this valuable information that can actually solve some problems for you right now. That's it. So it doesn't need to really be crazy, but you need to kind of think through what they actually struggle with and what you can deliver back to them. I think where this goes wrong is when people come up with something that's too easy and it's not actually valuable. If you can Google it and find it, if you could type it in on ChatGPT and find it fairly quick, it's not really that valuable. And that's usually where you see people where this pops up, hey, give me your name and email. You see what you're getting access to, and it's like, it's not really like worth you spamming my inbox, right? So it has to be valuable enough to actually make it worthwhile. So think of something that can't really be replicated by just quickly Googling something. Why this works? For me, this isn't totally out of the realm of cold outreach being a waste of time, but it does make it dramatically more difficult if you do not have something like this in your pipeline. Why? Because you're going to be trying to come up with a solution every single time you speak to somebody, and you're trying to convince somebody every single time. You also have nothing that you're putting on your side of the fence as like a resource that you can use over and over and over again when you're not around. What I mean by that is if you have a website or you have a YouTube channel or you have social media and you create this lead magnet, Well, while you're sleeping, people can be clicking on this and getting information from you. And in exchange, you're getting contacts from them. If you don't have that, it does actually rely on your time. And I think from what I've seen in the past, most of you guys are either transitioning to freelance or still have a W-2 and maybe want to do that. So time really matters a lot for you guys. So by not doing it this way, it's really going to require you to like physically talk to people and reach out to people and do it that way, which might be difficult based on the time that you guys have. So again, not really a total waste of time without it, but it does make it a lot more time consuming. Some Salesforce examples down here. I mentioned a few now talking through this, but cheat sheets, templates, ebooks, webinars, things like I'm doing right now with you guys. Really anything that you can share or send that you think is going to solve your person's pain points. That's really it. So you could put it on even a Word doc, right? I've had plenty of those where I download those and it's just like a brain dump of everything that they think can solve my problems. And I get access to it when I give them my email. So again, it doesn't need to be something you overthink when you're doing this. Great. Here's exactly how you're going to write that. This is also going for your offer. This is something, I don't know who's familiar with Alex Hormozy or not. Big marketer guy, has a book called $100 Million Leads, as well as $100 Million Offers. $100 Million Offers is what he talks a lot about. It's basically, how do you create an offer that's irresistible? Or in other words, how do you give your services or provide your services or sell your services in a way that it would just be stupid not to do business with you? And it really can kind of be boiled down to this formula. And this is what you're going to want to use as well when you're trying to come up with your lead magnet, right? So whatever problem you solve, this is what you should be applying to it, which is something along these lines. Doesn't have to be exactly this, but something along these lines of, we will solve X pain point for X person in X time frame with X deliverable. And then if we don't, here's a big, bold guarantee of why we would still be a good fit for you. So an example, how do we actually come up with an example of that? You'd have something like, we will save you $30,000 for mid-market tech companies in 3 weeks or less, or you get your money back guaranteed, or you don't pay, or we work for free until we do achieve that. So something like that. So something to where it's like, we provide this crazy thing for you, and here's the kicker. If we don't deliver on that for you, you don't pay us, or you get a refund, or we work for free until you do get it. Something that would make them feel like there's no way I can lose. These guys give me a great result, and if they don't for whatever reason, I don't even owe them any money, or something like that, right? So this is a way that you can actually formalize what you should be putting in that offer. Okay, you've got your clients, you got your lead magnet, you got your avatar. You're in a good spot now at this point, knowing who you should target and how. This is the next step to your system here. How do we actually convert leads to clients? And I know this is getting a little further away from the niche, but that's going to be your most natural next step, right? Which is, okay, hey, I'm putting myself out there. I'm getting some hits. What do I do now? So from here, what you want to do is you got to have a way to actually deliver this lead magnet or deliver value to people. And that's kind of the main reason I want to touch on this. There's a few ways to do this, both paid and free. So up here, I have in my example with your system, you can use MailChimp or ConvertKit. Those are both more of like a premium offer. I think they both have a free layer. It's probably fine when you're freelancing and don't have a bunch of contacts yet. Beehive, though, is another great resource, which I think is fully free. These three, basically all they do is just send emails for you. Why does that matter? Is because you're going to have, hopefully, you set yourself up some kind of like newsletter or something that you can deliver value to people outside of social media platforms. You want to have their emails so that you can contact them and give them valuable insights in their inbox, okay? So this is more ideal, like I said, if you're going to create a newsletter in the long run of things. And then what you can do is create a simple landing page to go along with that. Depending on which one you use up here, some of these guys actually just give you a landing page. You don't even need to create it. You just sign up, and then it's basically like, hey, do you want a landing page? You say, yeah. You type in what your company name is or what your name is, and then it just does it for you, and you just send people to that website. So you don't even really need to overthink it trying to create your own. You can if you want, and if you do, here's some options that are free or cheap. Wix, Canva, Card, those are all great. You could also just use a Google form if you're really feeling stressed out about this. To break this down further as to why you want to do this, if you're thinking about it this way, we're going to get into this right down here. But you want to make sure that you are delivering value before you're just trying to pitch somebody. You've probably had this happen on LinkedIn, but there's usually those people out there, right, that you have no idea who they are. They connect with you, and then instantly they're like, hey, Jordan, I got this great product and it does X, Y, Z, and this is why you should buy it. Do you want to take a demo? And it's like, I don't even know who you are. I just connected with you. There's no reason for me at all to want to talk to you right now. It's the same type of feeling if you're just going to go out and spam a bunch of people with your lead magnet. Hey, this is how we can help you with Salesforce. You don't even know if they use Salesforce. You don't even know if that's relevant to them. You haven't built enough trust or a relationship with them to actually make them want to even use your services or be interested to think it's even valuable enough. So what you're trying to do in the first part of this is have something that you can use to actually deliver that value. Now, again, this is a little more refined, setting it up on your newsletter. It is, in my opinion, the way to go. But if that seems like too much, then deliver value on social media for free. Post on LinkedIn, post on YouTube, post on any social media site you like, and deliver value that way. As you build followers, people will start to trust you. And then you can always pin your lead magnet or pin your YouTube video or whatever it is somewhere so that people can get into that. But the point is, you need to have some kind of system to where you're going to actually send this to. We talked about this one just a bit, but nurturing your lead, right? So here's an idea of how you can do this, especially when you're first starting out. These get more complex as you go and have more of a business. But an easy way to do this is if you just did 3 emails or 3 posts or 3 YouTube videos, right? You can kind of think of it this way. It may require more than this and probably will. I don't think 3 is just going to make them buy every single time, but just to help you understand the cadence as to why I'm saying 3. Basically, all I'm trying to say here is you have your lead magnet as to why they wanted to get interested in the first place. You have some kind of pain point that you're solving. The next you can do is some kind of proof. So a case study works great for that. Of this is last time somebody that did contact me and we did this thing for them and solved this pain point. This is what happened. We were able to make them $1 million, or we were able to save them 20 hours a week, or we were able to help them scale their business from 5 employees to 15 employees. Whatever it is, it's basically just showing that that thing you're interested in, somebody else was too, and this is why it was helpful. And then after you've done that, that's when you can kind of get into your pitch. Now, again, this number is going to differ, right? You need to find what works for your niche. It's probably not going to be 3. A lot more times it's something like 7 to 1, sometimes even going up to 12 to 1. And what I mean by that is 12 times you deliver value and no pitch. And then after the 12th time, you deliver a pitch. So you got to figure out what works best for your people. But that's why I'm saying a newsletter works great on this, because all I do on my newsletter is I'm basically just saying week after week, I send it once a week. And it's just a quick tip that they can read within 5 minutes or less of, hey, this is what I did this week, how we helped a client do this. Feel free to implement it yourself. Sometimes I'll include like a YouTube video in there or a Loom video and just say, here's exactly how I would set this up and solve that problem. And after I've done that 7 to 12 times, then I'll say, hey, if you're interested in working with us, we're doing this, right? We have an opening for a new client, and this is how we can help you. So you're trying to do that same thing. The main person that I love reading about from this is Russell Brunson. He's kind of the man known for funnels and this kind of whole lead nurturing. He wrote a book called .com Secrets. He has 2 others after that as well. I like the .com Secrets though, one to start off with. If this seems like you want to dive into that a little bit more, like how does this work? How do I actually send out emails? What should I say in my emails? That's exactly what this book will break down in like serious detail too. It's not, he doesn't do any gatekeeping where you buy the book and you kind of learn about it. He actually just like tells you specifically like, hey, this is the funnel we use. This is what I say in it. This is what it converted. This is how it helped me. So this is a really, really good one to get your mind around that idea if you've never messed around with it. And it's also, I think it's for free on, if you guys have Spotify, they have audiobooks on there nowadays. You can actually just listen to it there for free and he narrates it. So really easy one to do. After you have that happen, right? How do you actually close the deal? Where do you send them to? Calendly is another awesome free option. Setting that up is really quick. You guys probably working with certain companies right now probably have one. But this is really easy to set up a calendar, set it up, allow them to be able to book a call with you, set it for 15, 30 minutes and basically use that first call as a discovery. And in that call, you're just trying to understand why they even want to work with you. What are their pain points? Are you guys a good fit? And after you've done so, you'll get a feel for how things are going and can kind of work to close the deal from there. Okay, so to kind of break that back down, right? There's 4 main things we talked about. The first one is creating your magnet inside of the niche that you've chosen. So build something valuable that showcases your expertise in your niche. And again, the niche is just, who am I going to help? Attract leads is number 2, which is you can share valuable information in Salesforce groups, social media, email, friends, family. You never know who actually is interested in this stuff. So the point is talk to as many people as you can, especially when you're first starting out. It's easy to tell your friends and family, and then they can pass that along. And that's sometimes even easier than doing that on social media. 3 is nurturing those relationships like we talked about through a newsletter or through constant updates on some type of like social media to give those valuable insights. And then getting to that client, right? So converting the client. Yeah, we've got a question. I think it's Thiago. Go ahead.
I don't know because I joined a little bit 5 minutes late, but have you guys spoke about has anyone spoke about like the sales life cycle? How is the average life cycle for I don't know, like to a small project or to a managed service contract? Like how long it takes like to like create the lead, nurture, like moving to stage by stage, like until like convert, become a client, like start working and with that. Like, well, what is exactly the sales life cycle? Do you know? Or?
Yeah, good question. I guess just to have me understand a little bit more, is there like a specific, like something you want to get out of knowing like how long the cycle is? Like, what are you trying to figure out on your side so I can answer it better?
No, how long it takes, like since the marketing talking, like converting, like into a client, like what is the sales life cycle, for example, for a small project, for a client that is looking for a small project, or for a client that is looking for managed service? Do you guys have any historical on that, like to know like an average sales life cycle, or no? You guys never thought about it?
No, yeah, we definitely know for our own business. The reason I'm trying to ask is just because that's going to be a really big variable, right? Which is, well, how good are you on your newsletter? What kind of value do you deliver? Are you good at pitching? Can you sell people? Are you good at talking to people? Do you follow up? Do you have systems in place to follow up? Do you have sales?
No.
Do you have that's going to really get into a whole different topic.
Yeah.
Right. If you looked at somebody like a Google, for example, an enterprise company, they're going to have that narrowed down and they're going to know exactly all those numbers. And it's probably going to be fairly quick to what product they're trying to push. For somebody first starting out, this is going to be something you're going to have to try to learn. And it's going to vary probably a lot on client to client, especially depending on who it is that you're talking to. For us, if you want just an example though, for us, if we're trying to sell like a managed service and it's something that's usually around 10,000 starting out per month, that's usually going to take us anywhere from 2 to 3 months to close that client. There's usually some red tape they have to go through. They have to get budget approval. We take 2 to 5 maybe sales calls with them. We have a series of follow-up emails we go through. So there's a few things that have to happen. If it's something where they're just buying hours from us, where maybe they just want to purchase 20 hours of work from us, those are fairly quick because they're small, and that's usually less than a month. And that's for my business with my clients, right? So again, that's going to be totally different. I don't know what the sales cycle looks like for somebody that would be, let's say, nonprofit. I don't know if that is shorter or faster. And then again, how good is everybody on your team when they are trying to deliver those things?
Oh, I see. No, I've been around in the Salesforce for the last 5 years, but I just joined the Career Accelerator program, 2 weeks ago. Tried to set up my business and do everything, but I'm still at a baby steps here, I just starting out. Still like a Padawan,
Yeah, no, it's totally understandable. That's going to
yeah.
be one that you will definitely try to refine as you get going and want to make that as short as possible, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Just take some different skill sets to get there. You're either going to be hiring people to help you do that, or you yourself, you got to figure out all those things that I mentioned, which is how do I get better at selling?
Yeah, but good to know that the masters takes like a 2 to 3 months, to convert a client, so it's gonna take a little bit more, for me. So
okay, cool. Yeah, great question.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah, no problem at all. And then I think I see another one. Jacob?
Hello, Jordan. My question is about the offshoring or in Salesforce ecosystem. I have seen that most of the jobs vacancies are requiring the candidates to be in the city or in the country of the job. Is it also the same kind of situation with freelance vacancies, freelance roles that you can do in Salesforce?
Yeah, good question. I've only had that issue when we've worked with health companies or financial service companies. Reason for that is sometimes they have laws that they have to follow where anybody that has access to their data has to be within a certain state or within the country. So we do work with some people on my team that are not in the US, and specifically they can't work on accounts that are like our financial services or our health situations for that reason. So kind of depends, but I do think overall that seems to be more of an edge case. I wouldn't say the majority of time people are concerned with that. It's kind of like a random specific thing to that. So if you're in that situation, might be wise to just try to avoid working with those kinds of companies because they usually have audits that require you to be in the US if you're not in the US.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that. Good question. Okay, cool. I don't think I see any other hands up. So let me, I think we only have like 1 or 2 slides left. So let's just get through the next piece of this. Okay, the last thing I was just going to touch on right here, is the Salesforce skills yourself to kind of end this slide. We already know that those are in demand. Like you're in Talent Stacker, there's a whole business built around this, right? Helping people get into this career. There's a need for it. People use Salesforce. The CRM is one of those where they buy it and they're likely not going to get off of that platform because you need it for your business. So all you're trying to do with the lead magnet piece of it is basically just refine the people who you want to work with. That's really what you should use it for. So it's almost like, how do I weed out all the people I don't want to work with and only attract the people that I'd be interested in? So Hako brought up like a really good example. If I know I can't work with financial service companies because of the laws, well, then maybe I want to make sure that my lead magnet pushes those kind of people away, right? I want to work with somebody else. Okay, so here's some steps to how to get started here. Now, this big piece that I want to highlight on number 1, this is one that I've gotten advice on from several different people. I personally have joined a few different programs myself, similar to this, but specifically for scaling businesses. But a famous quote that usually comes up is something along this lines. I think Alex Ramosi is also famous for this one. But basically, anytime I've ever wanted to say, hey, I can't make enough money doing this, or I need to find more people, or I need to expand my horizon of the people I serve. One thing that the people that are always making more money than me and have more successful businesses than me always remind me of, like, have you ever hit $1 million in a year? And if the answer is no, then you really have room to always focus on one avatar, one channel, all the way up until that point. So what that means is if I serve mid-market tech companies 10 to 50 million, and we don't need to get into the side case, which is like, granted, whatever you pick, hopefully there's enough people. I think a while back, somebody talked to me and they're like, I want to work with jet companies based in Switzerland. And it's like, it's probably only like 2 of those, right? So you got to have a big enough group, of course. But the point would be, you could just focus on that one group and post just on one channel all the way up until $1 million a year, right? There's plenty of room to be able to do that in each one of these. And that's a really good way to get yourself into the idea of focusing. Far too often, I see a lot of people that start this off and they just get too wide on what they're trying to offer, which then again kind of is unattractive because you're not really speaking to one person. You're trying to just solve any problem that comes. And when you're a freelancer, if that's all you're providing is like, I can kind of do it. It's like, well, if I was a company getting ready to spend a good amount of money, would I want the guy that can kind of do it? Or do I want a team of people that's all they do? They only solve that kind of problem. I'm going to pick the latter, most likely. So just keep that in mind when you do pick your pricing strategy. These are some kind of costs that I found over the time of doing this. Another kind of pitfall I see people jump into when it comes to freelancing is wanting to get really high-end enterprises or high-end enterprise prices is what I meant to say, right when they start, because they have 10 years experience and they have all these credentials, right? Name off all these certifications that they have. The issue with that, again, is if you're not known in this space for that item, you're competing as a solo person versus companies like myself and companies much larger than us, right? Like Slalom, Zenify, the big 3. They have thousands of employees, right? That have thousands of certificates, and they're charging something that's going to be more like 250, 300, 350, right? So when you're trying to ask for a salary like that right off the bat, it doesn't allow you to just get started. Once you get started with somebody, just like anything, and you get your foot in the door, that's really where you can wow people and then up your prices from there. But if you don't even have a shot from the beginning, it's going to be real difficult to even get going or find momentum with it. So keep that in mind and know that offering a lower price is not going to hurt you. Probably is going to help you in the beginning, and you can always try to raise prices as you get going and you build up your portfolio, right? Build up your use cases, build up all the reasons as to why you're a great fit. But from the jump, don't just try to go in and ask for 250. Okay, iterate and improve. This comes down to basically just a lot of like testing. Don't get discouraged if something flops. That's pretty much my day every single day, which is, hey, I posted this, or I tried this, or I reached out to these people and I got rejected, or we put out this video, nobody watched it. Or you should be really just looking at it as a learning experience each time. You're not going to be able to figure this out if you're not willing to go through those rejections or go through all these failed tests that you have. So just keep that in mind as you're doing this, and then always look for ways that you can improve it the next time. One thing that is super helpful here is this last piece. If you know who you're trying to serve and you're lucky enough to have someone in your neighborhood or a friend or a family member that does that exact thing, see if you can start there. Try to understand their problems and reverse engineer it. So for me, again, mid-market tech companies, I have a few people that are in my neighborhood that work in sales at tech companies here in my same state. So whenever I have the chance and I run into them, I ask them about work and I ask them what they're doing and I ask them what's causing problems for them, right? And that allows me to then be like, oh, I never thought of it this way. This is like another problem they run into, or this is another thing that they hate dealing with. And that helps you then craft this lead magnet and find your niche a little bit easier. Okay, the last piece is Probably more as you grow here. This is probably more advice for that. But just know that there's like a huge community for this too. I think it took me far too long when I was first doing this as a freelancer to realize that you can actually just have people help you. I would always try to do everything alone, and I would kind of limit myself to the projects maybe I would take on because I didn't know how to do that thing, or I wasn't experienced with that product. But there's a huge community like all of you on here that want to do this, that you can then partner up with to be able to have them either subcontract for you, which just means you pay them a certain price to help get the work done, or you can actually partner up and like build a business that way. But the point being is there's always somebody out there that you can find and work with that's willing to probably help you with this, especially if you're paying them to help get the projects done, which I think is a really good one. I think that's it. Now it's just Q&A. So Thiago, I think I see your hand up again.
Yeah. My question for you is like, have any of you guys like tried before some type of system like these marketing agencies or things like that? That like, for example, like, I build like a cold email system for you in 90 days, or I sent for you like 10,000 emails, like per day for you, I promise I'm gonna build a pipeline for you like in the next 3 months, or something like that. Have you guys tried something like that, or some of these companies?
Yeah, we've tried it. I think they all have their place. I think my experience with it is if you have no idea what you're doing from the jump, it's really hard to work with those guys because they're just delivering a specific result for you. So let's take the cold email. Hey, we'll build out your cold email system and we'll send a bunch of emails. Okay, well, if you don't have a website, or you don't have a lead magnet, or you don't have sales reps, or you don't have a system on how you're going to follow up with those emails, well, then what's the point of kind of paying somebody to get the emails in the first place, right? So I think that's part of it. The other side is they're kind of masters at what I was talking about with the Alex Hormozy thing. They're great at creating that offer because that sounds so awesome. We'll send 10,000 emails a day and get you all these contacts. And so you're like, dude, let's do it. Yeah. And then you sign up and then you're like,
I will build up
and you sign up
$3 pipeline in 3 months for you.
Yeah. And I've definitely signed up for a couple of those. And I've even had some that I've worked with for months and got zero out of it. Right. Okay. So it's so dependent on who you're working with, and just, yeah, I think when you're doing that from the jump, it can be a big hit because you pay some good money for it and it may not work out.
Okay. But do you believe like if doing that with some sales rep or something like that, like to handle?
I think in the long run, when you think of a business, you can think of it this way. Would you be able to name a big business out there right now that doesn't cold email people, that doesn't call people? Probably not, right? So everybody's doing it. So you're eventually going to get to that point. So yeah, like sending emails is a good thing. Calling people is a good thing. But it's more of like, do you have $5,000 to spend every month to pay somebody to do that, and then no systems to help you run it? If the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't pay for it right now. I think there's a few series of steps you got to go through as just a business owner to try to understand first how this all needs to work and how it fits into your business. Because again, these guys are not going to be experts about your business. They're only experts about sending the emails. So you're going to actually, in a lot of these cases I've found, I'm the one telling them kind of who we should target, why that's not a good idea, how we can better refine it. And if you don't know those things yet, then it's going to end up just being a waste of money, in my opinion.
Okay.
Good question. Okay, I think I saw Sam next and then Travis.
Yeah, thank you for being here today. I just had the question of when you were starting out and you're still in your W-2, how big of jobs did you get or take? And then when did you actually hire help? When did that point come?
Okay, yeah, great question. Okay, so first one I ever landed came because I was posting a bunch on LinkedIn before this. I was still working W-2, and there was just somebody at a company leaving that knew they needed a Salesforce admin and referred me to him. So I got really lucky. And that one came out to be a managed service agreement. So what that means is it's like basically a retainer. Like, hey, we'll pay you this much every month for this many hours of your time until basically we don't want to use you anymore. When I started hiring employees, I only started doing that when like basically I just felt like my life sucked, like in a way of like, I, physically just couldn't do it. Like you have billable hours and you'll know like what your threshold is. I set a goal to just say, no matter what, for the full first year, I'm just going to do literally everything. I'm going to do the sales, marketing, the work, client services, everything. Because again, like I just told Thiago, if you want to scale this, you need to know all those skills to be able to then hire somebody, right? So I wouldn't have even known how to hire somebody early on because I didn't know really what I needed them to do or not do. I didn't know the pitfalls yet. So the full first year, I was just like, I'm just going to sacrifice that and just know I'm doing this for at least 1 year all alone, so that when I do hire someone, I can then say, hey, when you work with this client, don't say these things, or make sure you get this done, or make sure you document it this way. But yeah, once you get over to like your, more than full time, or when, I think for me, it was like I had kind of multiple clients and I was starting to run into issues where it was like, I can't deliver on deadlines the same day. Like 2 of these are due today and I just can't do it. Well, then pull somebody in and they don't need to be full time. Like, again, all of you guys are on this call. All of you, I'm sure, would be glad if somebody just approached you and said, hey man, I could get you 10 hours a month, 20 hours a month. I think every one of us would raise our hand. So the other side is it doesn't have to go from 0 to full time and I got to pay this guy. It's more of like, okay, I'm capped. I need you to kind of come in here. Let's start off with maybe 10 hours a month. I'll fill you in on this stuff. And then if that goes well, we can keep ramping up, which is what I do for every single one of the contractors we hire now, which is like, we're going to start you off with this. If it goes well, we'll keep raising you up all the way until you're full time with us. Hopefully that's helpful. Cool. Travis, I think you were next.
Yeah, thanks. My question is, so I do not have a full-time job. I do not have a W-2 yet. I've been at this for 18 months now, and I've kind of volunteered. I've done hopefully picking up some contract work now. I've owned my own business for 17 years in a foreign country. Like I know the pain.
You know your way around. Yeah.
And definitely different now having a kid, trying to figure this all out. But if I could, like, I guess if I had a crystal ball and I was trying to figure out how do I design this where I get into an industry that makes sense, obviously there's some variability there with the job market and everything like that. And you're going to try to efficiently build the skills to design this from the way up. How would you do it? Or is it how, if you feel pretty confident in your skills, with automation and basic admin skills, like, is it possible to start freelancing without and just kind of piecing together contract work without holding a W-2 for a long time, or just kind of some general advice around that?
Yeah. Good questions. Let me ask you this to phrase it in a better way. Are you at this point in time, would you be more worried about like the look of the company? Are you more worried about getting money into your bank account right away? Like what's your motivating factor of why you'd want to start it right now?
Oh, you mean start my own company versus or in terms of
if you started freelancing right now, like your main concern going into it, would it be like, okay, I have a month before I need another paycheck, otherwise this doesn't work? Or is it more like, oh, I have cash and I could do this right and I probably got a year's run and I could just do what I need to do?
I only have a few month runway. Okay. So pretty tight runway. Yeah.
Okay. So if I was in that position then, which I was as well, I'd gotten to a weird spot with my W-2. I quit. Like I told you guys, I had kind of one on the side that I was working with that I went full time with, but I still needed to get more money to make up that W-2. So in that instance, I think the first approach is like, you just got to make revenue. So it's like, I just got to start something. And I also didn't know my niche at that time. So it was like, anybody and everybody that wants something to do with Salesforce, I'll take it. I don't care what the price is. And I think the advantage of that was it got my foot in the door. You learn things that you like and don't like. Yeah, you're going to have some that don't work out, but you're also going to have some that do work out great. And it gives you just more room to kind of figure it out later. You can always, let's say worst case scenario, you collect 17 of those people and you only like 3 of them. Okay, well, now that you're making money, you can start phasing those guys out. You can start saying, hey, we loved working with you in the past, but we're really finding that we just want to work on financial services from here on out. You guys are in whatever, manufacturing. We're giving you a heads up, but beginning of the next year, we really can't support you. Let me know if you need me to help you find somebody. So you can always do that. And that's always way easier. I think the hard part is getting the revenue first. So again, just kind of going back to I feel like in the beginning when no one knows you, you just want to be as scrappy as you can to just get something going. And then once you're in there, just over deliver. And really, I think in service-based businesses where you make up a lot of the money is actually in the lifetime value of the company, right? So, okay, I landed a guy and maybe that was only $1,000 today. But, when I look at some of the clients we've had for 3 years, it's those are hundreds of thousands of dollars now that they're worth, all because I took something for $1,000, and I didn't know it would turn into that, but it did because they liked working with us. So that's kind of my approach on that. And I think you had a second one in there. Did I answer both of those?
Actually that's a really helpful starting point. I mean, I guess, yeah, I'll also, if nobody else has any questions, I might circle around, but go ahead with Luke. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. Luke.
Yeah. Thanks, Jordan. I think it was Sam's question actually just made me think a little bit, I guess, more insight into your business right now. Are you still doing hands-on keyboard, Salesforce configuration work on a day-to-day basis, or are you running discovery and then passing off to your team? I guess from more your perspective now, not necessarily doing independent consulting, you have a full team. I just wanted to get insight into that, what that looks like for you.
Yeah, great question. At this point, I don't really do any of the hands-on keyboard anymore. I do it in more of a as need basis, if I need to cover for somebody or it's an old client and they don't really have context on something I built a while back. That's where I'll jump in, or, giving advice on some things. But really where I'm trying to kind of stay at the moment is I've now kind of graduated, I think, step 2 in my mind, which is okay, I got a team. So I'm managing that team. I'm making sure that the client's happy. I do the quarterly business reviews with them. I make sure that they're, delivering on things that my team said they delivered on. We work with a marketing agency at the moment. So it's okay, a lot of my time goes to what do they need me to do? What do I need to build out? And I'm kind of just more of now trying to find the pieces that all need to go together to make the business better. And I try to spend a lot of my day doing that.
Yeah, that's really cool. When in your business did that start to change, I guess, when you switched from, I guess, as you scale, start passing off the work, and at what point in your journey was that happening?
Yeah, good question. There's a really good book by Dan Martell called Buy Back Your Time. I suggest reading that. He has some better approaches probably than what I'll tell you. I think his starts off with a virtual assistant. That may or may not apply with really what we do, but basically the answer to the book is something along the lines of you can do that as soon as you want to, essentially. His whole thing is you should delegate as fast as possible. If you actually want to build a business, then you're not going to be able to build a business if you're thinking about Salesforce all day, right? You're not spending any time on the vision. So if the idea is to build a business, you want to get out of that role as fast as possible. And how do you do that? Well, you're going to probably struggle through greediness and then hiring people. So I struggled with that for a while because you start making pretty good money and you're like, dude, why would I hire, man? I'm taking it all in. It's all profit. I don't have any costs. And you look at it that way. But then I think once you kind of get your second or third employee in, you actually start realizing, oh man, that first one stinks a little because it is just kind of straight taking your cost. But then once you get 2 or 3, you're like, dude, I got 3 people working right now or whatever, and they're just churning out money. And I just refresh my little Salesforce report and it's just boom, boom, boom. We're making more billable hours, So once it gets to that, it's more that compound effect. And you start to realize oh, this was the play all along because I can't do 3 jobs. And these guys are actually better than me at coding, at Apex or whatever. And I think that was the breakthrough for me is just realizing man, there's way better people at Salesforce than me. And I feel my strength has always been I'm pretty good at client services in the sense of keeping people happy and all that. So I kind of just leaned into that, hired people for what I wasn't great at. And I think that started really helping me.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Good question. Okay, I don't know who's next, Jacob or Nigel, but either one of you can go.
Oh, okay, I can go. My question is about the freelancing platforms, Jordan. I would like to know which one would you suggest to start from? Is it Upwork, Fiverr, or something else to start from?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I don't think I ever, in all transparency, I don't think I ever landed one from Upwork or Fiverr. I did try. I felt like on those platforms specifically, it was difficult because you're competing against like the world on there. And so there's always like that guy that's going to do it for $5 an hour. And I just wasn't going to. So I felt like it was hard to land stuff there. So I never did land one. So I can't really give a ton of advice on those two. I know people that have though, and I think the trick to that one, like most platforms, is it seems like the people that figured it out, they took really crappy jobs in the beginning so that they could start getting reviews, and then it becomes a review game. It's like, okay, maybe you sacrifice a month or two of just doing free work or close to free as you can. You get in exchange a 5-star review, and then at the end of 1 or 2 months, okay, I now have 20 5-star reviews. I should now be able to start upping my price and getting better projects. So I think that's usually what they chose to do. My platform was just like social media. So I just chose LinkedIn. LinkedIn's good because it has all the business owners on it, has their titles, has their company info. So it's a little easier to target them and, just start trying to chit chat with those people and connect with them. So that's kind of how I went about it, is I just would target the people in my niche. Okay, it's mid-market tech companies. Who are those people I want to work with? And then go and find the people that are the people I'm going to speak to, like sales operations or marketing operations, and start DMing those guys and try to get something going.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, let's go to Nigel next.
Sure. So on the subject of marketing and content generation, I guess generally, how do you go about procuring how I save this client $30,000 thanks to this automation or some other post generation on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So for me on those ones specifically, well, one, you get to know, you got to kind of do a little bit of math. So all of these things, which are cool once you kind of realize this trick, they can all be turned into a math equation, which is like, first, like, how am I even coming up with 30,000? Is it something out of thin air, or did I come up with it based on math? Answer is I came up with it based on something on math. So if we take a really simple example, you get paid $10 an hour, Nigel. You do something for 10 hours every single day. Okay, great. So take 10 times that by 10 hours. And now you have your math equation for how much money the company is spending on that project. Okay, great. So ideally, if I come in and I can take away that problem from Nigel doing that every day, well, then now you can multiply it by a week. You can multiply it by a month. You can multiply it by a year and come out with the outcome, right? And then that's how you come up with, hey, I solved this problem. Nigel no longer does this. The company was paying him $100 every day to do this thing. And now I've solved it. So I've saved the company, whatever it is, 100 grand in the year by solving this one problem. So you're going to want to think about your problems kind of in that tone. But it doesn't have to be money either, right? There's so many outcomes. And in tech, for me, I've noticed that my guys tend to care a lot about that because they've typically raised money and they have to be really like accountable to like how they're spending that money, because then they have to go back to the board and their investors and say what they're spending money on and how it's producing results. So for me, that works. But for somebody else, that might not work. And you can do this with just time too. So when you take on a project, when you do land that first one, try to at least ask how much time it takes them. And then from there, it's like, okay, it took them 10 hours a day or whatever it was, or 10 hours a week. Okay. And then you can change it into whatever your use case is. Hey, I saved this company, 100 hours every year by doing this thing. So that's kind of the approach I take on that, and a good way that you can form your use case once you do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Again, I'm not sure who raised their hand first, Manish or Juan, but either one of you guys can go.
First. Yep.
I guess I'll go. So this is my first Talent Hacker call. So I'm not really part of the program, so maybe I'm asking the wrong person this question. But it seems like this approach is coming from an admin standpoint and going through I'm going to create an agency, and then it's going to be primarily billable hours versus selling, I guess, a specific product. And maybe I'm wrong about that interpretation. I'm coming from a development background. I'm trying to think of, does Talent Hacker even have resources saying I'm a dev and I want to do freelancing? Do I need to go freshen up my admin skills and then have it as a package of services where I'm solving X problem, and that may be some development, that may be some admin, et cetera? Or are there other avenues? Like when I first thought about joining this call, I'm thinking, is it possible to create an app change app, or have an API, or have a Chrome extension, et cetera, that I put out there for free, and then have a managed service contract for additional work, et cetera, right? Versus going to say, I'm going to bill certain hours to build them out of flow or do some custom development, et cetera.
Yeah, good question. I think the answer in general is yes, right? All those things you just gave examples of, there's a business out there that we probably all thought of that makes money doing it that way. So there's not a certain way you have to go about doing it. Again, I think it just kind of comes down to you're just trying to solve a problem. So when you are thinking about whatever you want to do, I think when you go into actually selling it, you just want to keep that in mind of keeping that part simple. When I hire, for example, back to that marketing thing I've been using this whole time, when I hired the marketing agency, I'm not hiring them to tell me that they know how to technically set up my Google ads. I don't even care about that. What I'm hiring them for is that they're going to make me more money. How? They're going to get me leads. They're going to send people my way and get people to go to my website. So I'm only just interested in buying the end result, which is if I hire a marketing company, I make more money by getting leads. So it's the same thing for you. Whatever option you choose that you just mentioned, it's not that you're technically skilled at this or you need to do this in your admin. If you know how to do it and you just know how to save them time or make them more money or make their life easier, that's what you're trying to sell them. Is that helpful?
Well, overall, I understood that point, I guess. I'm trying to figure out more of how do I get from, yes, as a developer to solutioning, thinking of this, maybe making MVPs, the actual process of creating or even testing things. But yeah, overall, yes, your answer makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think for more of your technical stuff, I'm not a developer on my side, so I don't know if I would have those answers for you anyways about how to actually solution it out and build it with an MVP. In general, though, yeah, what you're going to want to do is make sure you have a person that has an actual problem, and then you're going to want to test a product with that person or that group of people to make sure it solves the problem. And then you're going to want to also get some testing around what do you price that thing at, right? So yes, I think just kind of going back to the basics again, which is yes, you will have to test it. Yes, you'll want an MVP if you are building a product. And you're going to want to test all those things before you really sink a bunch of time into it to make sure that that's something that people are even interested in. A good example of that is think of how many Salesforce Google extensions are out there and then how many actually get used. So you have the colored favicons one, but then you could actually just buy or download the one that's the Salesforce org thing that does 5 extensions in one, right? So it's if you spend all this time making the favicon, but then everybody's already downloading the other one, well, it's kind of a waste of your time. So I think just kind of going back to that idea again, which is, yeah, test it all before you get to that point where you're sacrificing all your time. And I know we're at time, and I know Anita had that in there. I'm happy to end it if they want us to here. I'm also happy to take a few more minutes to make sure everybody got their question answered. Okay.
If we get time, quick question.
Yeah.
A lot of us are either having a W-2 income, or trying to transition to freelance, right? Initially going out, because like, as you know, with W-2 and your LinkedIn profile, you are tied to a lot of your, coworkers and whatnot, right? How do you get over that? Because now you mentioned posting out on LinkedIn, right, to collect those emails to further blast out later on to get the leads and such, right? Like, how do you get over that fence? Do you create a LinkedIn company page, or I don't know what you do when you're in similar situation like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually haven't done that one, so I might not have the best advice on this about trying to do it incognito. But yes, I think I've heard a few options of what people do. Sometimes people will create like a second one where it's like, hey, this is the one I'm connected to with my company. And then like, here's my other one that's like personal that I'm not really connected to people on. And they'll use that to DM people or to look for jobs or whatever. The other option though, that I thought was better for me is like, I just took the approach when I was working for companies of just like doing what I would already want to do from the jump. So it's like when you're hiring me, it works in your favor too. So I felt like when maybe they never cared and maybe it's just like ego, but like in some sense, I've always felt like, hey, if I work for your company and I have, whatever it is, 100,000 followers, and I'm talking about the company I work at, that's free advertisement for you. And like, that's a benefit to you. And I wouldn't cross the line in my post by trying to say, hey, I'm looking for a job or something like that. But I would always try to just showcase my skills. So I was always trying to say like, hey, this is something cool we worked on at whatever company, Health Equity, and this is how we built this. Or, hey, I learned how to do this in Flow today, and this person over at my company helped me do that. And I think that may put me more in a position for people to look at me as like, oh, hey, this guy's always talking about this. And then I felt like that's where some of those DMs started coming from. Like, hey, I saw you post about this. Like, we're trying to do that at this company. Have you ever done that before? And then that would transition naturally into a conversation to be like, I have done that before. And, I do some freelancing on the side. Like, would you be interested in that? So that's the approach I took that I felt was pretty helpful.
Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. And then I think there was a couple here like in the chat. Did I miss any here, Anita? Do you know that we want to surface up? I think I saw a few, like one.
Someone asked me about Upwork.
Okay, yeah. So Upwork again. Yeah, to circle back to that one, I personally really haven't had success on there. The answer I think I gave earlier was something like, I think you can do it. The people I've talked to that were successful on there, they basically just kind of sacrificed how much money they were making up front to try to get reviews. And then once they had a good amount of reviews on either Fiverr or Upwork, then they were able to kind of leverage for more money and actually start landing jobs. But because you're competing against so many people on that platform, it does feel like it's kind of hard to win stuff if you don't have any reviews or you're unverified. So if you do choose to go that route, it feels like from what people have shared with me that that's kind of the successful route. Okay. And then I see one in here. I'm kind of towards the bottom. I think I see like Valentine. There's one in here that says, I don't know why I'm not able to raise my hand.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm getting real a lot of reverb here. Anywho, appreciate what you're doing. This is great. Much like huge value for my time, and I really appreciate you putting this forward. But my main question is, did you have to like clear anything with Salesforce, like to like set up a partnership deal or any sort of other agreement just to kind of play nice with them? And I will mute.
You don't have to. You can do your own thing. I think, especially when you're this small, they don't even know, probably even now, they probably don't even know I exist, right? It's like, I'm just a drop in the bucket of everybody else doing this. So I don't think you need to overthink that. If you do get into the long-term stuff, yes, they have a partner program that you can join. You do have to have like a legitimate business. You have to have a legitimate website. You have to have a legitimate like EIN number. Like it has to actually be legit. And you can't use anything that would infringe upon like their copyright. So I used to be simple Salesforce, if you guys remember. I couldn't be that any longer. I got like a notice to let me know that, that's not qualified for their program. So I had to change my business name and new EIN and stuff. So probably not something you got to worry about right up front. In the long run though, yes, they have all those options if you want to do that.
No, that's great though. That's exactly what I love the answer. Don't overthink it, because that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's all I was looking for. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. Okay, let's see. So Valentine, we got yours. And then I think I saw like one last one. Oh, here's one towards the top. Did I use, okay, yeah, the Upwork. Need to add that one pointed out. Okay, and then I think I saw one, Luke, again, maybe. I think you were trying to say something along the lines of like piggybacking on something I saw pop up. Did we answer that last one for you?
Oh yeah, I was just piggybacking off of my last question of like, so you'll in working with your team, you'll kind of close the deal, then you'll pass it off to like a BA in your delivery team. That's just all I was kind of asking.
Yeah, like the process. Yeah, so I think again, back to like my answer to like Valentine is don't need to overthink it, but yes, as you scale and get bigger, I think these like conversations and things will like come to you a little bit more naturally, just because you're going to see like, hey, I'm not very good at this. Maybe I need to hire somebody to actually do the pitching or do the lead follow up, or reach out to them when we close the deal, or it's like Christmas and we got to send them a Christmas basket or whatever it is. Those things I think come more naturally for you to then be like, I'm really bad at doing that, and I probably need to look into somebody that can help me do that. But yes, as of now, we'll take the call, have somebody kind of go through the first pitch with them, make sure it's good to go. And then maybe towards the end, I'll jump on, make sure there's still a good fit, and then try to close the deal from there.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, cool. I don't think that there's anything else. I think I see these new ones. Great workshop. Great. Okay, cool. Yeah, these all look good. All right. Hopefully I got everybody's answered. This was awesome. I really appreciated everybody's feedback, to be honest with you. It's great being able to like have this much chatter, and makes the presentation like way better. So thank you guys for answering all those things for me and asking questions to begin with. Glad you liked the presentation. I'll try to keep it pretty similar for the next one. And let's see. Okay, yeah, that's everything it looks like. So yeah, from here, we'll meet up again next quarter. I'll have another presentation on another topic for you guys, and then we'll just plan to do the same thing. Given that we had so much Q&A, I'll try to get through my presentation a little bit quicker next time so that we have more time to go through something like this with you guys and just chat. But other than that, if you have any other questions, just surface those to like Anita or Brad or anybody in the Talent Stacker group. And then they communicate with me of like things that, we should try to review with you guys when we're on these calls. So either way, it'll get surfaced back to me. So we're good for the next one too. Cool. Yeah, just a bunch of thanks. So appreciate it.